What's going on, everyone? It's your boy here, welcoming you to the third issue of Tommy Reed's X-Men, in which we are covering X-Men number 3 from January 1964. Before I like to start, first I'm going to kind of give a reminder of how I do these reviews. I don't really review them panel by panel. What I normally do is kind of point out the things that I thought interesting, funny, or just plain odd about the issue, and hopefully in checking this out you will maybe pick up the issue yourself or give it a look. This issue, written by Stan Lee with art by Jack Kirby, is entitled Beware the Blob, in which we meet the Blob for the first time. The Blob was never one of my favorite characters. I know he has a place in the X-Men universe, but he was always kind of a henchman to me. More henchman status than the main guy, but I mean, he does get his own issue in this one to introduce him. We start off with a little training montage at the mansion, and Charles decides to give Cyclops a rare compliment, which is odd because he doesn't usually hand out compliments like candy, but he will tell the Cyclops that he is the best X-Men. Now, he does this in front of the other X-Men, which is weird, so he's using the compliment to kind of draw dissension in the ranks. I mean, I know we're supposed to establish Cyclops as the leader, but man, Charles is not building camaraderie at all here. He wants the X-Men all out for themselves, but at the same time work as a team. Mixed signals from Professor X over here. Even worse so, we get into his inner monologue, and he starts talking about how he loves Jean. And it's not in the parental sense. It's very creepy. Professor R. Kelly over here is talking about how he loves Jean, but he has to keep it to himself. His mind's telling him no! But he says, I can't tell anyone. Thank God he doesn't tell anyone, but isn't Jean psychic? Like, she could pick it up, and she's probably picked it up on the weird looks that he's given her. The whole thing is weird and creepy. The first few pages establish Charles Xavier is kind of a creep, but we move on. We move on to the Blob. The X-Men find him at a circus, and they find out that he's a mutant pretty quickly. He's one of the stars of the circus, and they invite him to come back to the mansion at Charles's request. Don't know what he's got planned, but he says, hey, come to the mansion and talk to us about being a mutant. We're mutants as well. The Blob turns him down until he sees Jean, and then he's like, oh no, I'm going to the mansion definitely. So this second person to creep on Jean in this issue, which is a recurring theme in these early X-Men as I've been reading them. The Blob gets to the mansion, and right away Charles offers him a spot in the X-Men. I don't know if there's an audition process that the other people in the team had to go through, but he definitely didn't have to do it. This is not American Idol or anything like that. He's like, you want to be on the X-Men? And Blob's like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm good with my circus people. And then the hero, Mr. Charles Xavier, is like, well, he's seen the mansion and he's seen us, so he can't leave. And he's like, X-Men, stop him. And then the X-Men try to stop him, and they get their butts whipped. And on page 11, we have the first time that the mansion is destroyed. So, trivia buffs. January 1964, X-Men number 3, Beware the Blob. First time the mansion is destroyed when he tosses Beast right through a wall. The mansion's going to be destroyed plenty of times in this series, just as a casual reader that I've been over the years. But this was the first time. Now, the Blob gets away. Beast is all messed up. He recovers pretty good. But then, a couple panels later, the rest of the team is just smiling, laughing, cutting jokes and stuff like that. And it's weird to me until, I'm a little bit older, but I feel like because they try to establish them as teenagers, they're still having a good time. This is all fun and games, We haven't had anything serious, any life or death situation that the X-Men have faced yet. One of my favorite shows in recent times is Steven Universe. And I feel like in season 1 of Steven Universe, Steven's still really young, and going to find on the missions and stuff is still a great fun adventure. He doesn't realize the weight that's being carried behind what he's doing. And this reminded me a lot of that. They're always smiling, 60s heroes always got the smile, which is creepier. I mean, I'd rather be punched by a brooding Batman than a smiling Batman, because then I would think he has some kind of sick pleasure about beating me up. But let's take it back to the X-Men. Blob and his circus friends then decide, you know what? I didn't like how he tried to kick me out of the house. And who would? who would like to be kicked out the house? Like, if I go to your house and you offer me iced tea and I'm like, oh, do you have any lemons? You're like, heck no. And then we start fighting. So Blob decides to go, I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but anyway, maybe I just want some iced tea. The Blob and his circus friends decide to show up, and they put a whooping on the X-Men. Like, they are ill-prepared to handle these circus people, who are all just regular people, besides the Blob. And what happens is they end up getting the win because, for the second issue in a row, Charles steps in. Charles just happens to be finishing touches, on a psychic gun that they called it, and he straight up shoots all these people. He shoots them all and psychically mind wipes them so that the circus just thinks they took a wrong turn and ended up at the mansion, and then they take off. So the X-Men do get the win, but Charles has to bail them out for the second issue in a row. Hopefully this isn't a recurring theme where the kids get beat up and then old Chuck has to step in and make some eyes at Jean and then leave, and they get the win. But they do get the win and they get to fight another day. The mansion, I'm sure, will be repaired pretty quickly because Charles seems to have a ton of money. Final thoughts for this. The issue started off slow and creepy as well with Charles and Jean, which I did not like at all. It started slow, but then once the action started up with the fights and the Blob and the circus people, it really did pick up the pace. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it about an 8 out of 10. It was a little better than the last issue, not as good as the first issue, but somewhere in the middle. I mean, the X-Men are still trying to find their stride, both as a comic book series and as a superhero team. So what we're finding here is a bunch of young superheroes trying to find their way, smiling the whole time, and getting beat up until Papa Chuck helps them out. Anyway, 8 out of 10. I enjoyed this issue. Can't wait to read the next one. Hope you guys will stick with me for the next issue. This has been Tommy Reads X-Men. Thank you.